Yeah, please start.
Sure. Hello, everyone. If you've ever wondered why someone else other than you, even with less competence, has got a better promotion or even rises faster than you, if you've ever wondered that way, or if you've felt why the ideas that is told in a meeting, when somebody said it landed much better rather than how you did, right? The weightage of the ideas that is being told by someone is more than how when you tell the same idea. Or if you've ever wondered why your hard work sometimes sounds smaller than actually it is. If you've thought about any of these scenarios, why, I want to tell you that you're not alone in this. And of course, it's not even your fault, or it's not even a competence or a compact capability gap. I would like to call this the perception gap. And today in this session, I want to help you understand that the perception gap, what it really is, how it shapes your growth without even you realizing it. And importantly, how it influences the way managers evaluate you. Because at the end of the year, the managers or your bosses evaluate, right? And most importantly, how to close this gap using the principles of communication intelligence that I have come up with so that you can directly take it and apply it from your on your work from day one. And this way your work will be valued, you will be valued, and most importantly, you'll be strongly remembered for any other opportunities that's going to come your way. Are you ready to unlock? Now, with that, before we move forward, let's look at the science behind perception. Because more than it is a performance management, it has become perception management. Why? Because perception gap is not just a concept, it is a very well researched behavioral pattern. Most professionals believe that promotions are purely about skill, talent, and most importantly, hard work. But you know what research tells? Research gives a completely different story. Research says that 65 percentage of performance ratings are directly influenced by your manager's perception more than your actual performance. So 65 percentage, the rating that you're getting, it's a direct proportional to 65 percentage of what your boss thinks about you, what your boss thinks about your work, than what is the actual outcome of your work. That means your growth depends less on what you actually do and more on what your manager actually understands about what you do. Right? So 65 percentage, guys, just remember this before you sit in your year-end appraisal meetings, in your year-end rating sessions. Please understand whatever is the rating that you receive is 65 percentage coming directly from the perception that your boss has built upon you and less about the actual outcome that you and your work is delivering. And guess what? 62 percentage of professionals globally feel undervalued because their contribution is not visible or it is not taken in the right way. So, what does that mean? Globally, people feel that I have performed, I've given value, but I'm not appreciated. And India, if you look at specifically, only 14 percentage of employees believe that their manager fully understands the real impact. I have worked and I've got my promotion or visibility or whatever. The rest, 86 percentage of people are feeling that I am not understood. My impact is not known. And what does this mean? This is not a skill problem. It is a communication problem. And there is a perception gap when anybody thinks that I have performed, but I'm not valued for what I've delivered. So in India, it is even more worse. which means every 8 out of 10 people feel that I am not valued for the value that I deliver at office. So here's one of the important findings from Psychology of Communication Journal. So nearly 90% of communication at work is unconscious signaling that includes your tone, your confidence, the word choices that you make, the kind of framing that you do, your clarity, and most importantly, your presence. So all of this put together is what is important when it comes to working on your perception. And people don't just listen to what you say, right? They interpret in how they interpret in a way that they want to understand. And then what happens, they start forming conclusions about your capability, about your maturity, about your potential, based on the way you articulate and the way they perceive. We are going to look at all of that in a pretty while. And this is why I would say capability alone is never enough. Growth is driven by capability plus communication plus perception. If any of this is weak, then I would say the growth slows down. And the perception gap develops quietly when you rely on your work to speak for itself. But work does not speak, right? It does not have a mouth. So, who will have to do that? We as individuals. So, communication will amplify the value of your work. And communication intelligence is what converts your contribution into credibility. And the perception is what transforms your work into opportunity. So, we're going to work on both of that now, your communication intelligence and your perception. Now, before we move any forward, and I tell you how to build this perception for the right reasons, we need to go a little more deeper and understand the anatomy of this perception gap. Because only when you understand, you will be able to apply what I teach, the principles of communication intelligence. So the perception, right, has distinctively three layers. And once you understand these layers, you will immediately see where your visibility, where your influence, and where your career growth is actually stalling or slipping away, right? So let's start with the first layer, the anatomy of perception. So the first layer, I'd like to call it the visibility layer. And this is the simplest and the most common form of the gap. People don't see what you do because you don't show what you do. As simple as that. You may be working exceptionally hard. You may be actually burning the midnight oil. You may be doing a lot of things. But what if you do not communicate proactively? If you're not framing the value of your work, if you're not speaking up during important discussions, your contributions will definitely remain under the table. And the hidden contribution is almost always leading to hidden opportunities. So in corporate, the silent work leads to silent growth. And that silent growth never happens, right? So this visibility layer is the oxygen of your career. Now let's move on to the second layer, which is the interpretation layer. And this is where people see your work, which means you're speaking about your work, but they interpret it either incorrectly or incompletely. They hear the task that you're speaking, but they do not know what goes behind it. They hear the action, but not the outcome of that action. They even see the execution. They see you working hard. Anytime they log in, they are seeing your teams almost green all the time. They see the execution, but not the ownership, the kind of decisions that you make, the kind of initiative that you bring on the table. When this interpretation gap widens, your value begins to look smaller than it actually is. And this is a layer where most sincere, most hardworking professionals lose out because they're all doing, they have their competence, they are doing the right work. People are able to see it. But because their work is understand only at the surface level, They don't understand the value. They don't understand the strategic value that you bring to the table. So that is the second layer of the perception management. Now let's go a little more deeper and talk about the third layer, which is a narrative layer, and very important layer for all of us. This is the story people carry about you, even when you're not there in room. And that's what is brand, right? What people speak when you're not there in the room is the actual brand that you're carrying. And that is exactly your narrative layer. If you communicate tasks, right, your narrative becomes a task executor. If you communicate outcomes, your narrative becomes that you are a contributor. If you communicate impact, your narrative becomes that strategic professional that I am in. So I leave it to you. Do you want to be an executor? Or do you want to be a contributor? Or do you want to be this strategic professional? Based on which you can learn to communicate the task at various levels. Service level, when you want to be just a executor, you can just narrate how did you execute task. When you want to be a contributor, talk about the outcomes. But very importantly, when you want to be looked at as a strategic professional where the value is very deep, I want you to learn to communicate the impact. Now remember this line because it defines the perception gap. People don't remember what you did, people remember what they understood about what you did, right? So there is exactly where the gap is. What you did is one thing, what people remember, not even hear, not even what you tell, what they could remember about the value that you create is another thing. If they understand less, you grow less. If they understand more, you rise faster. And that is very simple as a formula. So now all that we have to do is to increase their understanding of the kind of work, the value that you create at work. Now, here's the empowering part. Perception gap is definitely not personal. It is more emotional, it is more structural. And hence, when you learn to articulate the value of the work that you carry with clarity, with visibility, and most importantly, if you can speak in a way that the other person understands you and remembers you, your job is done. And this is exactly how those professionals that we spoke at the starting, the ones that grow higher faster, this is how those professionals transform from being unnoticed to becoming undeniable, unforgettable. Only when you're there in the mind of your boss, you will get the other opportunities which is going to come your way, right? So now that we understand what is perception gap, why most importantly it is important, we also learned a little deeper understanding of the perception, the various layers. Now I want this to go into the application part. So to make this perception gap truly real for you, let's look at a small everyday moments where it silently takes shape, silently forms. And these are moments which can look very ordinary, very routine, but we do not realize how dramatically they can shape how others perceive you. Remember what we spoke at the starting between your perception management and performance management? Perception management is very important. Why? Because 65 percentage of your growth comes from the perception that is built in the minds of your supervisor or boss or your manager. So it makes it all the more important. Now let's look at the moments, right? Now imagine you complete a critical task and then say, as usual, right? I finished it. This is how we generally like, I finished it, I accomplished it, the delivery is done. This is how we most often communicate, even when we have done a critical task, even when we have put in a lot of effort, burnt midnight oil for like 1 month, we go ahead and say, hey, it's done. And that sentence communicates only completion. Does it carry any intelligence? No. Does it carry any ownership? Absolutely not. Does it carry any strategic thought process? No. And what is a value? And your boss thinks no, because people are only looking at it at the abstract level, right? At the surface level. But the actual work you did may have included analyzing results, resolving dependencies, managing stakeholders, preventing delays, ensuring quality, a lot of decision making, people management, and none of this was visible in the way you communicated when you just came back and told, I am done, right? Or consider this statement, I coordinated with the team. Huh, this is something that we hear quite often. Coordinated and got it done. Such an undervalue to the value that you bring to the table, right? What you really did maybe much better levels, deeper facilitating, reducing confusion, handling conflict, ensuring clarity, removing blockers, enabling smoother execution. But when you just phrase it in a single shallow task update, I coordinated with the team. So is your perception, shallow perception. That's what we build, isn't it? Another very common scenario that I have found in meetings is that the contribution is told very silently in just in one sentence updates. You tell yourself that, my work will speak for itself. How many of us have been guilty about thinking my work will speak for itself? My boss will know it better. It's my boss's responsibility to know what value. Hey, I don't want to talk too much about my work. I'm not a show off. I will let my work talk for myself. Being guilty of doing that, but in corporate settings, silent silent communication is never there. Doesn't talk at all. People assume you have nothing to add, even though you might be holding the most amazing value that you've brought every day to work. And then there are these updates, right? We simply say, I completed this, I worked on this, I followed up, I resolved. A lot of work would have, brain work, and your effort would have gone behind it. But then you just close it simply saying, I resolved. And these updates are activity based and not outcome based. And your managers then forced to interpret your impact. And managers who are juggling multiple priorities do not have bandwidth to decode your value. I think this would be one of the greatest takeaway from this whole session. Let us understand that the managers, they really do not have the bandwidth to decode your value. One thing from NLP that I wanted to teach everyone is that brain loves simplicity. The more simpler it is, brain loves it. Brain does not like decoding. Brain does not like to do a lot of work. So when you tell me that I've completed, my brain is very happy, and I don't want to get into the details as to who did what happened, what really caused the problem. Oh, done, done. So this is exactly how a manager's brain will work, and this leads to something that I would like to call the interpretation risk. The risk that your work is misunderstood, undervalued, or even minimized simply because it was not expressed with the clarity, with the context, and even confidence, right? Interpretation risk quietly influences everything that you want, your performance ratings, the next challenging project, whom it goes to, your project selections, your stakeholders trust, and most importantly, your growth. And that's where all of us are risking our career growth, in the interpretation risk. Most professionals never realize how much their growth depends on these small sentences. A slight shift in the tone, a slight shift in the framing of sentences, or even your word choice completely changes how your senior leaders view your capability. And communication is not about just talking more, it is about revealing the intelligence behind the work. And that's absolutely your responsibility. And what are we doing instead? We are very happy to create more and more perception gap in a lot of micro moments and a lot of micro omissions in your meetings, in your lot of places where you can actually be talking about the value. And the empowering truth is that it can be closed through small shifts that you can do in your communication, in the way you can articulate your value. And that is where I would like to introduce this communication intelligence framework into your work, where you can actively shape the perception. Always remember 65 percentage of any of your growth depends upon the perception that you've built in your supervisor's mind. Now that you understand various layers of the perception gap, let me give you a system that closes this whole perception gap, the three layers. And this is a framework I have spent years in developing, coaching, testing, and refining it with professionals, leaders, and even teams. Now, that's what I call the VII framework. And once you start using it right, the way you communicate at work will never be the same. And what does VII stand for? It's value, impact, and influence. And these are the three dimensions that every meaningful update, your conversations, your performance reviews, and presentation must have. And I would even say that have this VII wherever you go. And do you know that your water cooler conversations is as important as your meeting updates? Because perception is formed every single conversation that you're doing at office. If you know Steve Jobs, when he came out of Apple and he created this company called Pixar, he put an enormous amount of money and time in designing the workplace for Pixar. So much that the Pixar's COO, I believe, he went on to tell that you all know Pixar movies, right? The kind of grandeur, the kind of innovation, the kind of money that they spend on their movies is simply amazing. They literally design and craft their movies. So one of their senior folks told that Steve Jobs has spent the time and money as equal as creating a Pixar movie in designing the workplace of Pixar. So then I got very curious. I went in to read about it. That is when I realized that he has designed the workplace in a way that he has put, you all know how a typical workplace is, right? All corporate people sitting out here, we all know how it generally is. You have your workplaces in the middle, and then the pantries and your restrooms, all of that on the other side. Even the lounge, if you look at, it's at the entrance, so it's basically on the perimeter of the building. You know what Steve Jobs did? He put all of this pantries and your restrooms, all of that in the middle, and then he distributed the workplaces on the perimeter of the on the boundaries of the building. Now, guess why would he do it? Spending so much time and effort and, of course, money into designing such an office place? Because he feels water cooler conversations is very important to business. And that is how his technologically advanced strategic brain has worked. And hence, I would like to bring the fact on the table that even your water cooler conversations is as equally important than any other meeting that you're having, even your appraisal meeting. So I want you to take this VII everywhere you go at work, even to your water cooler conversations. Right? Now, let's get quickly into it. There are three dimensions that every meaningful update or your all of that performance reviews, presentations all should have. Now, quickly into V. V is the value of the task, and value means the result of the task. So most people, very happy people, right? I completed the report, I finished testing, I finished my presentation. All of this is what they would like to say. So now I want you to go a little bit deeper and not just talk about the activity, but please talk about the value that you're bringing, the result of the task. So, what do you say? I completed the report that helped the team take data driven decisions. or I completed the report that will enable people to take data driven decisions. So, what are you talking now? You're talking about the outcome, you're talking about the value, you're talking about the result of the task. So, I completed report is just the execution, far more on the higher level. And it does not even penetrate the three levels of perception that we did discuss, right? I finished testing, another cliched updates that we do everywhere. Trust me, people tell that I finished testing even in the appraisal meeting. How can you now improve with the V framework? I finished testing that reduced the post release defects. I finished the presentation that enabled easier integration. So, talk about the outcome. Same work, but completely different perception. So, the value communicates the purpose of you and your work. And the value communicates intention of you and your work. And the value, very importantly, talks about the contribution that you have done. So, purpose, intention, and contribution. When you learn to express the value, right, you no longer sound like this task executor, but you start sounding like that strategic enabler that you are. And that's where we all have to go, right? Anybody can execute, and we all know we all are in midst of a huge disruption which is happening in the way we are working, and no more operations is the topic. It's better that we shift from the operational role or operational aspect of our work into the strategic aspect. Now that brings me to the second framework, which is impact. What is the measurable shift did your work create? Impact is where your work actually becomes meaningful. Your work actually becomes potential. And this is exactly where your perception upgrades, where you tell that, I've created a report, to I've created a report that can drive decisions, to what is the impact that you're going to make, right? Impact means numbers. It could be any numbers, right? Your time saved, your effort saved, the risk, the percentage of risks avoided, the quality percentage that you've improved, the decision speed which is accelerated, the customer satisfaction scores that has been improved. Numbers. Start falling in love with your numbers. That is when people will know your potential. Now, let me show you a difference, right? Let's say you go on to say, I analyzed the customer feedback. Task executor level, let's now move into more impact. I analyzed the customer feedback and identified the patterns that reduced the recurring complaints and improved the satisfaction scores by 80%. You see the difference, or you see the impact that it is created just when you add numbers. And when I say numbers, right, for example, I said 80. Trust me when I say this, you don't have to do 80, you don't have to do 90. Just 1% will create a lot. It's just that the numbers that you mentioned. And you do not have to work on too much of formulas and all, just a percentage. What was it earlier? What is it now? Percentage. That's all. And most of us just don't want to do that small bit of calculation. We end up just telling at the surface level that I executed this task. Let's go one level deeper. And I want you to now, from now onwards, start talking the numbers when you're talking and even in your water cooler conversation. And that's how you improve not just the value and impact of the work, but you improve the value and impact of yourself as a strategic contributor at work. Right? Now, let's move on and talk about the third factor, which is the influence. Influence is very important because when we do the work, who is getting benefited and how are they getting benefited is very important. That's when you start influencing the or shape the perception in a way that it will put you as a strategic professional. Now, this is one of the most overlooked dimension, but I want you to start thinking about it in every aspect of what you speak in anywhere at your corridors or at your office meetings. Number one, who did my work help? Is it to engineers? Is it to leaders? Is it to customers directly? Who did my work help? And how did it help them? What was that shift? Because any work that you do has to improve somebody's life better. As simple as that. Whose life was it and how did you shift it? You need to have that clarity so that the next time when I say I updated documentation, you say I updated documentation that helped this, and this person, and it reduced the uh, risk mitigation by this many percentage. So you bring the impact as a numbers and you tell very clearly who is that person who got benefited out of your work. And that way, your boss will be able to understand better the value that you have brought in. So next time, please don't say, I created a dashboard. Please go a little bit deeper. I created a dashboard that helped the leadership team to track the project performance in real time. And it helped them make the decision faster by 10 percentage. You see the difference? Instead of I created a dashboard to where we are right now. So influence is that small dimension that makes your work sound leadership ready. And this is a layer that elevates your work from being a contributor to being a strategic performer. Now, we just looked at VII, value, impact, and influence. Now, let's put all of them together because only when you put all of them together, you can actually see a transformation. Otherwise, when you put only value, only impact, or only the influence, you'll only see those much results, right? Because we talked about the layers of perception. It's better to go as deeper as possible. So now, again, I want to give you a very quick example. I conducted a knowledge sharing session. That's your typical update. Now, how do you move with VII update? I conducted a knowledge sharing session. That's your value, right? The outcome. The session is your value. That reduced the technical expertise dependency and improved the onboarding efficiency. So, improve the onboarding efficiency by, let's say, 10 percentage. So, that's your impact and helped the team work independently on critical modules. So, that is the influence. The team's work is the influence that you're creating. How? How did they how did you help them? They now can start working independently just because of your knowledge sharing session. Do you feel the difference? One sounds like an activity, and one sounds like a strategy. And that's how a leader sounds. So now I want you to pick one task for this week and write how you would have told it generally, like I've delivered, to how now can you rewrite the same task with this VII structure. Because when you communicate, right, using the VII structure, you don't sound like someone who's doing work. You sound like someone who's driving outcomes, who's creating impacts, and most importantly, creating influence. And do you know these are the outcomes or the value, impact, and influence? And these are exactly the language of decision makers, the language of the decision makers that gives that perception. And you know that perception is what will help you grow in your career. Now, if you understand where you are to where you have to go, you will for sure close this perception gap. Now that you understand the VII, you understood what is perception gap, how it is created, and what are the various layers that you have right now. I want to take you to a tool called the perception reset exercise. And this helps you identify exactly where your growth is getting blocked. Okay. Now, I want you to think about these questions one by one. You can even type your answers in the chat if you feel comfortable, or if you don't, just deeply reflect, probably write in a paper. So, this is for you. The first question that I want you to deeply reflect is that what is that one thing you do regularly that your manager does not fully understand? It could be something complex, it could be something simple, something you do behind the scenes, and something you hold together, but it never just got communicated at all. It's all at the background. What is that one thing that you've been consistently doing, but your manager does not even know that you're doing? Another question to think very deeply: what is that one part of your work that sounds small when you just say it out loud, but it is actually high impact when you break it down using your VII framework? Your coordination effort, your customer call, your stakeholder management, the review that you do. It may all sound very small so far because we are accustomed to talk in single sentence that I've completed, I did. But what is that something that hides a lot of your intelligence behind, lot of your skill behind, lot of your strategic execution behind? I want you to list all of them down. These are your perception gaps. Now, I also want you to deeply reflect on where do you feel your value is getting diluted? Is it in your meetings, in your update sessions, your stand ups, or is it in your one on one conversation that you typically don't touch the value that you bring, or in the email where you just want to write very crisply and you're not even touching about the value? Or more importantly, is it on your LinkedIn where your digital brand should be showcasing your strengths, but you've so far not done it? If you have not heard this, I want to highlight the statistics for you. They say the LinkedIn presence or your digital presence. I keep talking about LinkedIn because we are addressing corporate crowd on the large, and LinkedIn is the go-to place. So the statistic says that the digital presence is 561 percentage more important than what is lying there in your official communication. Your official communication over emails, over Teams, over your Teams call could say that you are a great strategic leader. But what does your LinkedIn say? And when we typically look at your research statistics, right? We talk about 50 percentage, 80 percentage, 90 percentage. Have you ever seen a number which is three digits? And that goes on to tell you how important is your online presence. And how is our online presence? Most of the corporate professionals, they only have a profile in LinkedIn. They don't have a brand. I want you to deeply reflect on that, on how is your LinkedIn showcasing the strengths that you have? How is your LinkedIn showcasing the value that you're bringing on the table? If someone described your role, right, in one sentence today, what do you think they would say? Or what do you secretly wish for them to tell? You want it to be strategic, right? Not just an operational execution role. And that's exactly where the perception gap today is lying. And perception gap is not about the lack of talent. I want you to all understand that the capability is there everywhere, competence is there everywhere. It is just that how we fail to communicate our value, and how are we remembered in the minds of our leadership team, your bosses, your managers. So here's the truth: your growth has never been limited to your capability. It has always have been limited by what people understand about your capability and what people, most importantly, remember about your capability. So, according to Harvard Business Review, right, this is very important. Employees who communicate their impact clearly are 30 percentage more likely to be promoted, not because they are talented, not because they have really got amazing work to do, just because they can communicate their impact clearly. Very simple. And one more statistic that I want to add today is that LinkedIn's global research shows that professionals with strong visibility inside organization and online, they receive 70 percentage better strategic opportunities, your new projects, your challenging projects, your on sites, your leadership roles, your cross functional assignments that you're going to do, right? So please start working on the everyday communication at your workplace, even in your water cooler conversations. The second thing is to work on your digital presence, because this means that you'll have to first work on closing your perception gap, and that becomes a true career accelerator strategy that anybody could ever be having. All right. On that note, I would wish you all a great communication intelligence along your way, where you start talking about the value that you contribute and use this perception gap not as a signal, but to work on it strategically, more deeply, more consistently, so that you will absolutely one see a shift, amazing shift in your communication, and you'll see an amazing shift in the way the work sounds, and you'll also absolutely amazingly see the shift in the contribution that you'll be doing. Start building the perception, and you will see amazing growth results that will come to you. Thank you. On that note, we will open the floor for questions. Shabana?
Yeah, yeah, sure, Kavina. It was really wonderful talk and many
Thank you.
insights, filled with insights. So,
Thank you,
anyone
Shabana.
wants to ask anything or contribute?
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very nice talk. My name is Dr. Naveen. I actually,
Hello, doctor.
yeah. So I was wondering whether, when you project or when you showcase your thing and you actually increase your value and that way further your career. So how do you put, where is your thing of your own capability as such? I mean, your merit in the whole scheme of things. I mean, it is quite possible that you project more than you actually deserve. And does that kind of a thing, is it counterproductive, or, I mean, projecting more
Eh,
than what you're capable of? I mean, I don't know. Of course, it is required because otherwise you may underestimate yourself, but can you go a little overboard sometimes in your own projections?
So, Dr. Naveen, that's a typical question coming in from a very humble person, right? So, that's what we've been taught, at least in India, that we all have to be humble, and our marks should tell the answers of how hard that we worked as children. And same thing that we carried into work as well, that the work will speak for itself. So, now coming to this question of, will I over project it? Absolutely not. Because what you do is what you will project for sure. Because when you talk about the outcomes, for sure it is the outcome that you've prepared, the presentation or the session that you have delivered, or the number of the releases that you have delivered. So that is number one. The outcome is going to be the same as what you have delivered. We will never be able to exaggerate it. This is one. The second, where there might be a possibility of exaggeration, is only in the numbers. That again, when you talk about numbers, this is a beautiful thing. Numbers are so raw that anybody can actually calculate. So we cannot over exaggerate the numbers, although there is a possibility of doing it. So, impact, when you talk about impact, the numbers, when you give the numbers, when people go and check, the authenticity is still there. So, we are not over projecting or over exaggerating. And then coming to the influence, again, influence is a thing that we cannot go beyond what we have done. I have delivered this for my end user, or I have delivered it for my team members. So that is also going to be something that we have done, and only so much that we have done we can be delivering. Of course, the influence or the impact that we have created on them, right? So those also is a thing where you can only talk about what you have delivered. So I would once again tell that it is just that our humility telling that, am I over exaggerating, or am I now looking like a person who's drumming his own trumpet? But absolutely not. Because when we talk about perception management, your work will not speak for itself until we speak for it. So I would strongly say if you do this VII framework, where there's no fluff around it, right? It's very simple, three statements. What is the value that you're creating? What is the result? What is the impact? The numbers. Numbers can't lie. That's a beauty. And the third thing is the influence. Who got impacted by your work and how did they get impacted? So three statements, no fluff, absolutely. This will bring you more genuine as a contributor only. So we do not have to think twice whether we are doing it in the right manner or not.
Yeah, okay, thanks. That is a good thing that you said. And there was one more thing which I wonder is that is there any difference between how a employee projects his things to the boss and how the boss himself, I mean, if you are in a leadership role, how do you behave? I mean, because
If
as an employee you can project it to your boss, but if you yourself are a leader, how do you behave? I mean,
Absolutely. Thanks for asking that question. Of course, when I'm a leader, when I'm going to look at my team members, when there's one person who is going to consistently keep telling me that I've done that, I've done this, that may be off putting for me as a leader. But here's an important point again, right? When we are talking about our status update, only then that we are going to tell that, okay, I've completed this release, this has helped in this particular area, the impact that it has created, and this is how it has helped the end user. So just three statements. And now when you add impact, right, you're coming as a very authentic person. And when you're now talking about the influence that you have done, so when you're helping my stakeholder as a leader, right, when my team member is going to help my stakeholder, I am going to take that pride of work and I am going to ripple the effect of the work that my team member is giving. For example, let's say he has helped the technical team to resolve a huge blocker 90 percentage on all of that. Now I'm going to tell the technical team that, hey, look, this particular person, my team member, has done this for you, and this is the impact that we have created together as a team. So the team member, or when I'm a team member, I'm telling my leader, I'm not just telling him that what I have done, I'm also giving him a reason where he can tell that he co-owned this. So it is like again a ripple effect when it comes to the leadership. And me being the leader, I would be very happy if my team member actually tells me that the effect that they have created, so that I will go and ripple the effect for them as well. And that
mm.
again, why I keep talking about that VII framework. We can never go wrong with the VII framework. It's first of all crisp. Second, it is very structured. And there is no way where we will go a little overboard on the fluff part or the exaggeration part. So it's just to the point, authentic, and something that the leaders also will understand.
Thank you, madam.
So
It
as
was a very nice question. Thanks.
I just wanted to add, as a leader, I keep asking my team, when you have done the work, can you tell me what is the result that it has delivered? Can you tell me what is the percentage that you have delivered? Only then I, as a leader, can understand. So I ask this quite often with my team members. So, as for a leader, if we bring it on the table, they'll be very happy, is what I feel. Great.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
all the
Thank you.
questions. Any other questions?
Um, uh, Kavina,
Hi.
uh, you just never fail to impress me with your delivery. You are very, very smooth sailing. You are very, very. Now, many people have said, "Oh, I cannot talk properly. I cannot deliver my." Because I, I'm having, I'm having a run called sinus erythema,
Mm,
meaning that uh, it's to do with my breathing as I get older. It's already in me. And because
mhm,
of these hormonal changes, it is causing me pain in my right.
mhm,
So I went for blood test, and I am actually doing a lot of things um, with So why do organizations or why do people absorb your energy? That's what I am wondering about.
Why organizations observe your energy, right? Or absorb.
Ab- Absorb, like it's like a vacuum. So yeah, even in on personal front, I'm very happy that I'm giving my own father my own father has joined Mother Katharia's teaching course by me. So me and the trainer have designed. So why do like people like my caregiver's niece or my sister is like
Mhm.
instead of like being proud of me and saying I'm happy to be with you, they like absorb
Lovely.
the energy like the vacuum. How is that?
We
And
all do observe a lot of energy, no, from each other. You just mentioned about the caregiver, your parents, your sisters, siblings, right? That's how we interact with the fellow human beings, I believe. And coming most importantly to organizations, that's how organizations work. And I've heard this a lot of cliched statements when it comes to this aspect of it. They say they take every blood of it, every sweat of it. I try to put that in a very different perspective as to we are there, let's deliver value, right? Because everybody needs that value out. And that's how we interact with the other social beings as well. So does organizations. And that is why this topic becomes all the more important to highlight the work or highlight the value of the work that we do. Everybody is doing work. But what organizations need is the value. So that's why this session makes it all the more important for professionals. And of course, as you mentioned, in the way we all live with the fellow beings, to highlight what is something that we bring to the table.
yes, so super.
And
Uh,
more power to you.
yeah, I need the power actually
Sending
because
you a lot.
it's like yeah. So I think it's not only me. It's just for all the women who's like career women and experience this kind of yeah training and personal development because I want to grow. I don't want to. Yeah, I'm growing. I don't want to be. I'm growing well, doing fine. But yeah,
So when we know that there's this lot of absorption, the one thing that I would tell is the more we should learn to call out the value that we have brought in. So today what we saw is a one short session. You would have experienced one single shift in the communication. So this would even take a shift in the way that we work and the way people will perceive our contribution. Now imagine we do this for a one whole day session. That's what Shabana will also share the poster about. We are planning to do one whole day session, which is split into two half a day sessions on a Saturday and Sunday, which is December 13th and 14th. We would like to work on a deeper work of how to create brand that will influence people at work. More clarity, more frameworks, more tools, and more life transformations that we have planned to do in this boot camp called as Brand Fluence Boot Camp. Shabana will also help you all understand what it is about on the registration part. So if you feel this is helping you, please do come. Let's talk about how to confidently talk about work, how to upgrade your perception, which is lying in the minds of your manager, how to impact in meetings, how to impact in any conversation that you do so that you create a powerful professional brand, not just in your office work, but also create a digital presence that will mirror the kind of work that you bring on the table. So for registrations, Shabana will help you all. Thank you. Shabana, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Kavina. I will I'm going to share the details on the group. And otherwise also, please feel free to reach out to us. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we have no more questions. So thank you everyone for participating, and we'll look forward to see you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Kavina.